Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today is a big day for us because we actually have our very first guest. We're excited, but also a little nervous about how we'll handle having another person in the mix of this.
Nothing to be nervous about because she's the kind of person who just calms everything down the moment she enters a room. At least that's what she does for me because this guest is my very special friend.
Yes, it is. But I must say again, it's kind of nerve-wracking, the dynamic of the two of us talking, plus adding someone new and not just anyone, a therapist. And that word actually stresses me out a little, I must say, for some reason.
Why?
Well, not like that, but more the idea that she is a professional and that we are absolutely not.
Well, I feel we know a thing or two about this from our experiences, though we are not professionals. That's true.
Yeah, I guess if you say so.
But I'm honestly so excited. I've learned so much from her over the years, and I really believe this conversation can help other people too, not just me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know it's been such a gift for you to have a friend like her. She's not just a friend, but also a professional with so much experience helping people navigate their thoughts, emotions, patterns. And having someone like that by your side through everything that you have gone through, I think that is priceless.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That support is what helped me the most, no doubt. But I don't think we need to say more for now. Let's bring her in and let her speak for herself.
Yes, dear first guest, welcome.
Wow, thank you. And wow, what an introduction. I'm really grateful to be here with you today, and I'm really thrilled.
So are we, definitely. So, Janne, can you start by introducing yourself to our listeners?
Of course. Like you said, my name is Janne, and well, who am I? Well, first of all, I'm a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I have lovely kids back home, and I'm also a partner, and family is very important to me. And my professional background with training in both physiotherapy and cognitive therapy. And I look at myself as the kind of person who enjoys listening, learning, and sharing a few laughs on the way. So I hope this conversation today can feel safe for us.
Yeah.
And open and meaningful, because I've been a bit nervous. This is the first time being a guest on the podcast. So
Yeah. You don't have to be nervous, or maybe we can all be a little bit nervous together.
Yeah.
But you also happen to know Nina pretty well, don't you?
Yes. I've been so fortunate to have been Nina's friend for almost 35 years now. And I'm truly impressed by Nina, how gracefully she's navigated through grief that she's been through and the most challenging moments in life. And her strength, the resilience, and the ability to keep moving forward despite such profound loss is very inspiring. And it really speaks to the incredible person she is. And I've had the true privilege of being there for her during one of her most difficult periods in life. And it was actually almost by chance that I began using cognitive therapy during that time. And I was in the middle of my training when Nina's husband got ill and later passed away. And the timing meant that the tools that I was learning could offer her some comfort and support, something that I never planned on, but I feel deeply grateful that the tools that I could show her were able to make a meaningful difference for her.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is a lot. And I knew today might be emotional because you mean so much to me. But hearing you say all that, it hits right in the heart, I must say. I mean, we basically known each other our whole lives, 35 years. That's wild. And yes, we've always been good friends. I mean, really good friends. But when I lost my husband, when everything went dark and I honestly didn't know which way was up anymore, you became something so much more than a friend. I don't think you even realize how much you helped me. I mean, okay, this is emotional.
Yeah.
But your support wasn't just comforting.
Now we're all gonna end up crying.
Okay.
But yeah, she means
Yeah.
a lot to you. I can.
But it
tell.
wasn't just comforting, it was actually life-saving. You were the one who taught me how to help myself again, little by little, how to breathe, I mean, how to think, and how to not drown in all the feelings. I honestly feel like I owe you my life, and I love you with all my heart. It's this that kind of episode today. But part of why you were such an invaluable support is because you dared to ask the real questions, not the polite ones, not how are you holding up, but the ones that actually made me reflect and grow and understand what was happening inside me. And those questions were hard sometimes, sure, but they were exactly what I needed. I could honestly talk about this until morning because there was so much I could say. But in short, you helped me heal in ways I didn't know were possible. And the fact that you were doing your cognitive therapy training during that exact chapter, the hardest chapter of my life, that meant you could support me. Not only as this incredible friend you've always been, but also with this special knowledge that made such a difference. It made you an even stronger anchor for me, more than you'll ever know. So it's quite special for me that you are here today, being our guest. Okay, thank you. I will get a tissue now.
Oh, that means a lot to hear, Nina. And what you're explaining is really the heart of my work. This belief that everyone has the capacity to understand themselves better, to grow, and to respond to life with more clarity and compassion. And that's what I hope to share with you today, this practical insight that we both shared, and also this very human, gentle way of relating to our own thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I mean, that emotional connection, I think that you both shared, I think our listeners are going to love to hear more.
Yeah, I absolutely think so too. So, welcome to this episode.
Okay, so if you had to explain cognitive therapy in a really relatable way, how would you describe it? Just so people who don't know anything about it can get a clear picture.
Well, I think of it as a way for people to understand themselves better. It's about noticing how our thoughts, emotions, the behaviors, and even our bodily sensations are connected. And it isn't about telling someone how they should think or feel, it's more about shining a light on patterns that we tend to fall into so we can make more conscious choices instead of reacting automatically.
So, it's like giving people a map of their own mind in a way.
Yeah. And once you have that map, it becomes a little bit easier to navigate. And we all have automatic thoughts. It's like those quick little stories that our mind tells us about situations or about ourselves. And cognitive therapy helps you slow down, notice those thoughts, and understand where they come from and decide how much influence they should actually have in your life.
So it's not about forcing positive thinking then. It's more about awareness and understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And curiosity is really the foundation of cognitive therapy. It's about pausing enough to ask, is this thought that I'm having here now helpful for me? Is it accurate? Is there another way that I can see this? And that curiosity can turn the mind from something that feels like an enemy into something that actually feels like supporting you.
I love that. And it makes so much sense because when you start seeing those patterns, it's incredibly freeing. I mean, I really know that it is.
Yeah, And it really is. Because I think there's so many people that feel trapped inside their thoughts. And then they're so relieved to learn how normal those thoughts actually are. Because once you start understanding the link between your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, you regain like a sense of control. And a big part of therapy is simply just normalizing these experiences. Because you're not broken. You're just being a human.
I feel like that gives our listeners such a clear human picture of what cognitive therapy really is. It actually sounds very practical, I think.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad to hear that because when people hear the term cognitive therapy, it can sound a bit clinical or technical, but at its core, it's really about helping people, helping themselves, and in everyday life with real situations. So it's very practical.
That makes it feel more approachable for sure.
Yeah, and that's very important because the goal is never for someone to be dependent on a therapist forever, because the goal is that over time, a person becomes their own therapist. You learn how to use the technique in different situations, and you become someone who knows yourself better. You understand your patterns better, and you know how to support yourself better when life gets hard.
Yeah, because this is not really about fixing someone, right? It's more about guiding them into fixing themselves in a way.
Yeah, that's true. Because there is nothing to fix. It's more about understanding yourself and the reactions and the thoughts that we have. And we talk a lot about the relationships in cognitive therapy between thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and the body, because once you understand how they relate to each other, like the whole system, you can make much kinder and much more intentional choices in your daily life.
That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
And that explanation leads us right into something that you mentioned earlier, automatic thoughts. It's a term people hear, but most of us really don't know what it means. So, can you explain it in a really simple human way so my brain can understand it more?
Yeah, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try my best. Well, the thing is that our minds are constantly processing information. Like everything that happens around us, it's interpreting it, it's remembering it, and it's making a sense of what's happening around us, both on the inside and the outside. And most of these interpretations happens automatically. It's like a nonstop inner dialogue. And these automatic thoughts are those quick reactions that just pop up into our mind without even choosing them. Like you don't choose your automatic thoughts, they just happen to pop up. And they're shaped by our past experiences and beliefs. And they affect how we feel and how our bodies react and what we do. And often it happens before we even realize they're there. So this is the core of the automatic thoughts.
And that is something I recognized so strongly during my grief. These thoughts would just appear, and I didn't even realize I was treating them like facts in a way. Like if a thought told me you should have done more or you're not coping well enough, I didn't question it. I just believed it kind of as a truth to me. And what you're saying and what you have taught me is that these automatic thoughts feel true simply because they show up so quickly, like out of the blue, or that you don't question them right
Mhm.
in a way.
Yeah, because our minds present them as a truth, like actually interpretations, like the truth when they pop up. And if those interpretations then lean negative, like you said, Nina, which is very common during grief, they shape how we see ourselves and the world in a difficult time. And this is where the part of curiosity comes in. Because if you can start to ask questions like, is this the only way to see this situation? Is this thought that I'm having now helpful for me? Where did it come from? Those questions can create a little space between the thoughts and the action, and that space is very powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love when you say it like that, and that does really sound empowering. And honestly, I watched Nina go through that process in real time.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that tiny pause that you taught me to have, noticing a thought instead of being swallowed by it, it was huge. And I remember realizing, oh, this is just my brain reacting. It's not a verdict on who I am. And I never would have said I had an inner dialogue before all of this happened, at least not in a conscious way. But grief kind of forces you to meet yourself in a new way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very common because this awareness of your inner world doesn't come naturally to everyone, especially when you're in survival mode, like being in grief. But once you start noticing those automatic thoughts, you gain this emotional room to breathe. And also, developing compassion for yourself is the part of what we train on when you meet the thoughts, when you have this pause, because then you can start to see how different we are in meeting thoughts.
Hmm.
So, cognitive therapy isn't about replacing a negative thought with a positive one, then. It's really just about awareness to think things through.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about forcing yourself to think happy, but it's about being curious, asking questions. Is this the truth, like I mentioned earlier? And instead of believing like 100% in every thought, you can pause and ask the questions that we mentioned earlier. And that pause, reflecting on your thoughts, that gives you a choice instead of just being controlled by these automatic reactions that often follow after automatic thoughts.
Mm.
So you make more conscious choices.
And it's really powerful and helpful in these situations.
Mhm.
So, let's zoom out a little. We talked about automatic thoughts and noticing them, but how do those thoughts actually influence how we feel and act?
That's a good question because what we see is that the thoughts that we're having and the emotion that comes and behaviors, they are constantly interacting. It's almost like a little ecosystem inside of us. And a thought, or it could also be a feeling, but
Mm.
let's use a thought as an example. It could triggers a feeling. Uh, and that feeling usually leads to some kind of response. We can have an example like if I'm thinking, I'm going to fail this, for example. The emotion that follows could be sadness or shame, and then the behavior becomes avoidance, maybe pulling back, shutting down, doing less because of the fear. And when those loops repeat themselves again and again, that's when we can find ourselves feeling really stuck.
So negative thoughts can create a narrow space for action then, really.
Mm-hmm. And I really want to underline this because these patterns that we have, we shouldn't judge them. They're usually developed to protect us. And it's a reason why we have those patterns. Because maybe at one point in life, avoiding something actually helped us to survive a difficult moment. But the thing is, when we begin to notice the patterns, just like you described earlier, Nina, that tiny little pause, that's the time when we get the chance to make small adjustments, and even just softening a thought, like even just reducing the intensity of a thought just a little bit. That can actually shift the emotion that follows the thought. And that shift can open up entirely for new actions. And change, when it comes to cognitive therapy, it's never about forcing people to do something else. It's more about creating the space, having a reflection, and feeling the response that has for your feelings and actions.
Yeah.
So the behavior is really a response to both the thought and the feeling.
Mm-hmm. And this is how we can explain how patterns are formed. Because if the same thought show up again and again, like we often see,
Yeah.
they tend to lock us in the same emotional reaction and the same behavior. So it becomes like a well-worn path in the brain. It becomes automatic.
Yeah. And that's when it starts to feel like you're stuck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because negative thought patterns, they can create an incredibly narrow space for action. Because we see when our thoughts become rigid or harsh, our option starts to feel limited. It's almost like there's only one way things can be, even if we know that that's not true.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the work begins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's so important here is that we don't blame ourselves for these patterns. As I told earlier, they develop for a reason, often as a way of protecting us at some earlier point in our life. So instead of judging, we get curious on these patterns, working on curiosity.
Yeah. And that's such an important reminder for all of us, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. So in cognitive therapy, the goal is to discover these patterns and not to criticize ourselves for having them. Because when we can look back at them and have compassion when we meet them, that's when we see that things start to shift.
And when you notice these patterns, that's when things can change, right? Is
Mhm.
that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because even like a very tiny small change in how we relate to thought can open for new possibilities. It doesn't have to be dramatic change. If we can soften a rigid thought just a little bit, make it a little bit more flexible or a little bit more realistic, it can lead to a different emotional response.
And then maybe a different action also, right?
Yes, a new choice. And over time, those small choices, they create new pathways in our brains and way of thinking and new ways of responding to life. And especially in moments when we normally fall back into these old patterns.
So it's less about forcing change and more about creating space.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful way to put it. Because when we really understand how our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are connected, we can see that change doesn't have to be so dramatic or overwhelming. Sometimes curiosity and compassion together is enough just to open a door for a small change.
You know, hearing this, how small shifts in thoughts can open up new emotional space, it makes me think about something that we talk a lot about in this podcast.
Yeah. And that, of course, is grief.
Yeah, because if there's any experience where your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors collide like a storm, it's grief. And we shared so much on that here, how differently we've, or you, Nina, specifically, has handled that, how overwhelming it can feel, and how hard it is to make sense of anything when your world suddenly changes.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of the things you've explained so far, that's exactly what helped me survive those first months. So I'm really excited about this next part to hear more because I know that this is so helpful for everyone.
Yeah. So let's go there, because we all know grief is something most of us experience at some point, unfortunately, and it can feel completely overwhelming when it does. And cognitive therapy can be really helpful when someone is going through loss, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think grief is one of the most intense human experiences we have. But it's very important for me to say that cognitive therapy shouldn't and can't take the pain away, because the pain is part of the process in grieving. Though what we can do with cognitive therapy is to help people navigate the experience that you go through in a way that feels more manageable. It can give you the tools to understand what's happening in your mind and in your body, and to notice the patterns that show up in your thoughts and emotions.
Because it's not about trying to get over the grief quickly, right? It's more about getting through.
Not at all. Grief is not something that you can fix. What we do is help people observe their thoughts and feelings with curiosity and compassion. For example, someone might think, oh, I should be feeling better now, or I'm failing if I can't handle this. This can be common thoughts in a grieving process, and those thoughts can intensify guilt, shame, or anxiety, which can make it worse for you
Yeah.
while grieving. And cognitive therapy can help people notice these automatic thoughts and gently question them, like, is this thought true? Is it helpful for me to have this thought? Could there be another perspective on this thought? And the goal is not to erase the grief, but it's to reduce the extra suffering that comes from harsh, self-critical thinking.
Yeah.
Maybe because when you're grieving, your thoughts can spiral without you even realizing it, right?
Exactly. And that's why we look at the connection between the thoughts, the emotions, and the behavior. Because we see that grief often comes with withdrawal, rumination, or even avoidance. And by noticing how a thought triggers a feeling, which then leads to an action or inaction, you can begin to gently interrupt patterns that increase suffering. Even small shifts matter, like allowing yourself to remember the person without judgment or taking one tiny step towards connecting with someone else. Those small steps can create moments of relief when you're in a grieving process.
Yeah, and maybe we can say it's about creating space for your grief rather than trying to control it in a way.
Yes, that's true. So, cognitive therapy also helps normalizing the whole experience. Like grief can bring a mix of emotions. Sometimes we see even contradictory ones, like sadness, anger, relief, guilt.
Yeah, it's true.
And many people think they're grieving in a wrong way, but therapy helps them to see that these reactions are human and normal, because you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. And noticing thoughts and emotion with curiosity, like we said, you can make grief feel less overwhelming and more navigable.
Yeah.
So cognitive therapy isn't about rushing the process, but giving people a framework to understand and live with their grief.
Yeah, that's it. It's about supporting someone to move through grief with awareness and with compassion for themselves, and with a gradually growing sense of agency, even when the loss will always be a part of their life.
Yeah, that's beautifully said.
For someone who's never been in cognitive therapy, like me, what actually happens in the room? What is it like?
I'll try to explain. It's important to be aware of that cognitive therapy isn't about the therapist fixing you. It's a conversation like we're having here, and a collaboration. You lead as a patient and the therapist is guiding. And together we explore the thoughts that might limit you or sometimes support you, and look at how those thoughts can shape your emotions and actions. And a lot of it comes down to gentle questioning the thoughts or the emotions. Questions like, what makes you believe that? Or Could there be another way to see this? And it's about uncovering patterns that might be keeping you stuck.
Yeah, and it's not about erasing beliefs or pretending everything is fine, right? But more about noticing how they influence you.
That's true. So instead of giving you the right answer, you never get the right answer from a cognitive therapist. We help you to explore your own answers. So we ask questions like I said earlier, like, is this thought helping you, or is this thought holding you back? Where did this idea about yourself come from? All these questions will help you to see patterns in how you think that might be limiting you or causing you unnecessary stress.
And that's where those deep-seated beliefs about yourself come into play, right?
Yeah. Because often we find people carry invisible rules or ideas about themselves. It could be thoughts like, I must always succeed, or I'm not lovable. And these thoughts, they are automatic, so we even hardly notice them, but they can affect everything. They can affect how we feel, how we act, and even how we see ourselves. So therapy then helps make them visible, and we can explore together how they developed so you can relate to them differently.
Yeah, I must say I can really relate to that. I remember during the first months of grief, I had this constant thought that if I stop, everything will fall apart in a way. And I didn't even realize that I was guiding so many of my actions, like overworking or shutting out support, even. And just noticing it without judgment, that changed everything for me.
Yeah, that's a great example, Nina. Because awareness and reflection are the first steps towards change. And once you can see these patterns, you gain a choice instead of being unconsciously driven by them. And that's why therapy is collaborative. The client leads, and the therapist will help illuminate the path. So it's empowering and it's not prescriptive.
So, what would a typical session look like then? Do you just talk about thoughts, or do you actually practice noticing them in real time?
Well, it's actually both. A lot of the work happens in conversation, and we might bring up a situation that you faced during the week, a difficult situation maybe, and we explore together the thoughts that came up, and we gently examine their impact on how you felt and what your behaviors was in that situation. And then we practice noticing those thoughts. We consider alternatives together. Is there a different way of meeting thoughts in the same situation? And together we think about how you could respond differently next time. So next session would be trying out what we talked about in the therapy session. So it's about creating that pause between what happened and how you react, which can feel revolutionary once you experience it. So it's about being aware, trying it out in real situations, and then evaluating it together with a therapist in the next session.
Hmm. And for me, learning to pause, even for a moment, that was the thing that allowed me to take a breath and make choices instead of just reacting to grief or even anxiety, as you said earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. And therapy, it helps people see that their thoughts aren't facts. They're just something that we have to notice, explore, and sometimes we have to adjust them. And over time, we see that awareness opens the door to new ways of responding instead of just getting caught in the same automatic reactions that so many of us are.
Mm.
So, it's less about telling someone what to do and more about building awareness and making a choice.
Yeah, that's true. It's about insight, confidence, and very important self compassion. So you learn to respond to life rather than simply react, which makes a huge difference in how you feel and navigate challenges.
Yeah, it's really empowering, not prescriptive, as you say. And that's what I think makes it work so well.
And that's the goal, helping people respond more thoughtfully, with compassion for themselves, and gradually take back control over their emotional and behavioral patterns.
Amazing.
As we start to wrap up, I have a question for you. If you could give people one gentle cognitive tool for when life feels like it's collapsing, just one, what would it be?
That's a beautiful question.
Probably an easy one also.
Well, there are many things I would try to share, but one gentle cognitive tool, I would say it must be the practicing of noticing your thoughts without the judgment. Just to have a simple pause, observe what's going on through your mind, and ask yourself, is what I'm thinking now helpful for me? Does it reflect the reality, or is it just a story my mind is telling me? Even just a few moments of this awareness can create this space that Nina has told us about for a calmer, clearer decision. And it can stop you from being swept away by this automatic reactions that a lot of us actually happen to end up in.
And it is, as you say, it's a practice, and a practice that when you manage to do it, it feels very powerful. And I love that it is something anyone can start practicing immediately. And I know for me, even a small pause in the middle of grief, that, as I said, made a huge difference.
Yeah, this is all new to me, but definitely something that I will try my hardest to do. It sounds like it can be very helpful. But I'm also wondering, what's something that you wish everyone understood about their own thoughts and emotions?
Well, I wish people knew more about that their thoughts and emotions are messengers, not dictators.
Yeah.
We
No,
don't like
no.
dictators.
The thoughts and emotions, they tell you something about your past experience, but they're not necessarily truths or commands. And that's what I think is important for people to understand. Because if we can treat the emotions and thought with curiosity instead of fear, shame, or self-criticism, we can give ourselves this room to breathe, reflect, and respond more thoughtfully. And we all know that life is full of challenges, but this gentle awareness, it can make us navigate the challenges a little bit easier, and it feels a lot less lonely if we dare to take the pause.
Yeah, that's such a comforting perspective. It really resonates with me, for sure, especially when you're in the middle of something overwhelming. It reminds you that your mind is really not your enemy.
Yeah, really. And I think that's something listeners can carry with them every day, like a little mental pause button for when life gets really heavy. So, to wrap things up, Janne, thank you for being brave enough to join us today. It's been such an honor to have you on the podcast and to share your wisdom, insights, and practical tools for our listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been amazing to hear your perspective and to get some guidance that I know is going to help so many people. And personally, it's been wonderful to share this space with you because, as always, I've learned so much just from talking with you here today.
Oh, thank you both. Well, it's been a really pleasure for me to be here and to have this conversation with you.
It's not that scary, was it?
Well, yeah, that's a little bit scary.
You did great.
I'm trying to work on my thoughts and
Yeah.
yeah. But I hope the listeners can feel a little bit more equipped to notice their thoughts and practice curiosity and show yourself some more compassion, because we all deserve a little bit more self-compassion.
Yeah.
I know I learned a thing or two, definitely. So thank you again for being our very first guest. It is such a special moment for the podcast.
Absolutely. And I love how this conversation has tied together so much of what we've been exploring here in this podcast. grief, automatic thoughts, the space between feeling and action, and just being human with all of it. It gives me a lot to reflect on personally. And I guess that can count for our listeners too, hopefully.
Yeah, and me too. And I think what really stands out is that none of this is about quick fixes. It's about noticing, pausing, and choosing.
Yeah.
And that's something anyone can take into their daily life.
And it's also comforting to realize that our thoughts aren't the boss of us, that we can give ourselves permission to step back and to be curious and respond differently. And I think it's a really empowering message.
It's so true. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. Gentle awareness, curiosity, and self-compassion. Those are things we can all carry with us.
Yeah. So to everyone listening, take a moment today to notice your thoughts. Give yourself some compassion. And remember that it is okay to just be human. And give it time. If you can't do it today, you can always try again tomorrow. And thanks for joining us on this first journey with a very special guest.
And we can't wait to bring you more conversations like these in the episodes to come. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Nina had a dream, all black and white. We were talking in English, yeah, that ain't right. Two Norwegian sisters miles apart, but that dream lit a fire, put a mic to the heart. Katrine's in the States, Nina's back home. Two voices, one mission through the microphone. Grief in life, the highs and the lows. We hit record, where the file go? Oh, we fumble, we stumble, but baby we shine. Lost the intro, never mind. Wi-Fi shaky, cables crossed, but our hearts stay strong, no moment lost. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. Grief walks in, pulls up a chair, says I'll stay a while, yeah, life ain't fair. But we mix it with laughter, a toast in hand, finding light where the dark still stands. Ba-da-da-boo-doo, is this thing on? Mic's on mute, oh well, move along. Ba-ba-dee, ba-ba-da, take two. Oops, too late, let's laugh it through. From a dream to the mic, now the world can hear. Two sisters telling truths with a laugh and a tear. We live, we learn, we sip, we sigh. Talking love, talking lost, let the echoes fly. So plug in, lean in, let's take our time. No script, no filters, just rhythm and rhyme. We're here, we're now, we're in our prime. Two sisters, one dream, on the mic we shine.